Hello everyone, this is Vickie Wind back again for our adult craft for January. This month we are doing a sea glass luminary that looks like this, and it's a little bit different in that Kate, our teen librarian, did a version of this in December and has already done a video on how-tos. So I'm just doing an intro on how our adult one is a little bit different. And on the top we have a different lid with a little puff ball. We have white snowflakes instead of the gold I think she used. And I also wanted to give you some tips that I learned while I made mine, and I wanted to also show you right now what our February craft is, and it's a wine glass that you will paint, and we'll also have some extra things if you want to also paint all the way around the back. So that will be February, so we hope to see you in February. So let's get started on our luminary.
To start with, in your kit, if you got one of our kits, you should find a little thing of glossy Mod Podge. Looks like this. This is going to be the first step, and I will warn you, this is going to be messy, so if you tend to be like me and always get things on your fingers, you might want to wear gloves. You're also going to want to have a tiny bit of water, and you're going to want to grab this little bottle. Here is our food coloring. Now, we provided you with blue food coloring so you can get this cool blue frosted look, but you can also put in any color of food coloring you want if you want a different tone, or you can choose not to put any food coloring in at all if you like, and that will give you just like this frosted look, but I haven't tried that one out yet. I've just heard about it. So first things first is we're going to take that off. I'm going to take my water and I'm just going to put a little bit of it into my Mod Podge, not a lot, and then I'm going to put a little bit of food coloring. That was more than I wanted, but it doesn't really matter. It'll just make sure you have a darker blue. Put that in, and you're gonna grab the provided popsicle stick or some other stir stick and just start mixing until it is fully incorporated and you have blue. You're gonna wanna, as you can see, it's kind of messy and I'm getting stuff everywhere. So I put a piece of tinfoil underneath this just to make sure. Yeah, see it there. If you're anything like me, you're gonna look like you murdered a Smurf by the end of this. So mixy, tell you that. And then we're gonna add, this is optional, I'm gonna put some glitter in, which we provided you with some glitter that you can add as much as you want, and then stir. Oh, I made such a mess here. Yeah. Okay, so once you've got this all stirred up, so you've got your blue, you're gonna grab your jar. So if you didn't get one of our kits, any glass jar will do. If you decide to use one, like an old spaghetti jar or something, just make sure the label, everything is taken off and you can get off the residue with like Goo Gone or something. So then we're just gonna take our little cup and pour it all in here. Now the reason we put the water is gonna make it so that it's going to get a little bit more movement in it. So once we have this in here, you're just going to start tilting your jar because you want the inside entirely coated. And so we're going to tilt it right over, up and back and forth, over our little cup here so that we can pour, we're going to pour our excess Mod Podge into the cup. And yeah, so you'll just tilt it around. As you can see, it's going over my sides. So yeah, so you're just gonna do the trip upside down and then just slowly tilt it around so it fully covers. And this is also, as you can see, this is kind of messy, which is why you always want to have something underneath. Right, so I'm speeding this up just because I'm just basically holding this upside down so that I can get all of that extra Mod Podge out. So once you have as much of it as you can stand holding it upside down. You're just going to wipe off the edges at the top so there's not a bunch of glue on it. And then in your kits, you're going to have 2 additional popsicle sticks, but you can also use pieces of cardboard, like I'm using here, these 2 little strips, to set them apart. And you're going to be setting your jar upside down on these pieces of cardboard to continue draining the extra Mod Podge out of your jar. So I'm just going to set it on the edges and let it sit. Make sure that you have another piece of cardboard or some tin foil or something underneath so that it doesn't drip all over your surface. Because mine were a little bit, it was too close to the bottom, I decided to just fold these in half to give a little more height on my jar. And I'm going to leave it sitting upside down on top of these for about an hour. All right, it's been about an hour, and this is what my jar looks like. You can see it's fully coated at this point, nice and even. And I actually could have left it upside down a little bit longer, but I did about an hour. So now you have 2 options on how to finish this project. You can let your jar air dry, which will take a couple of days to do, maybe in between 2 to 4 days probably to air dry. It really depends on the temperature within your home. This jar right here is one that I let air dry. So you can see it still gets that sea glass effect. And this other jar, this one I actually baked in the oven. If you want to bake it in the oven, you're going to set your oven for between 200 and 250 degrees. Let it preheat and get up to temperature. And then you are going to bake your jar in the oven for roughly an hour to an hour and a half at that low heat setting. If you're a teen doing this project, make sure to get your parents' permission before putting it in the oven. And this, I decided to put my jar right side up, and I'm putting in a piece of parchment paper on a cookie tray before I put it in. While our jar is baking, we're going to go ahead and decorate our lid of our jar. So if you got one of our kits, you are going to find all the supplies to make one like this. It should have a nice sparkly ribbon, and you're also going to have a vinyl snowflake decal. You can't really see it very well in the video because it's gold on gold, but it will become apparent soon. If you want to do this, you're also going to either need double stick tape or a hot glue gun to decorate the sides. This part of it is optional, so if you don't have the supplies for that, your luminary is still going to look great without this part. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab the side of my jar and I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue, and then I'm just going to glue down the end of my ribbon and make sure it lines up. I'm just going to press it down for a second, make sure it stays, and then my ribbon will get wrapped around the entire lid of the jar. Once I see how it lays nicely here, I just want to make sure that it overlaps properly and where it's going to end. I am going to go ahead and lift my ribbon back up, and I'm going to add a little bit more glue down just so there's a little more for the ribbon to adhere to. I'm not going to put glue around the entire edge of the lid because I don't know if it's very apparent in the video, but it becomes a little transparent once you have that hot glue under the ribbon. So I only want enough of it that the second layer of ribbon is going to overlap it, and it will cover up that spot a little. So I'm just going to wrap it around nice and tight. And then I'm going to get some glue, and I'm going to go ahead and put that down right onto the ribbon where I want to put the end. And then I'm just going to smooth that down. Now your ribbon is going to be slightly taller than your jar, so it's going to go over the lid slightly. Okay, once you have that done, make sure to unplug your glue gun, and then we're going to grab the smaller of our 2 snowflake decals that are in our jar. Now for this, I'm going to just use my fingernails to lift this up from the vinyl. You got to take the bigger gold part off first. As you can see, it's It's kind of a pain. But if you got one of our kits, I did include a toothpick in there, and that might be able to help you in getting this lifted up. So you're going to go slowly when you're lifting up this part so you don't accidentally rip the snowflake decal. So just go ahead and take that off. Feel free to laugh at me as you see me get into a fight with the sticker vinyl. And then you just make sure to get all of the small pieces out of your snowflake. I had a little centerpiece that I had to lift up. Then the easiest way that I found to do this, once I kind of decide where I'm going to put that in, trying to try to get in my center, I'm going to fold that piece over and I'm going to lift just slightly the edges of my snowflake, and then I'm going to put that down onto my jar, smooth the sticker with my finger onto it, and then slowly pull on the other side of the paper to get the rest of the decal down. And then I'll just smooth it onto the top of my jar. This is just a very simple way to make the top of the jar a little less plain, but it is not required, so if you happen to rip your decal, it is not the end of the world. Okay, so this is, I just took my jar out of the oven and I let it cool. Make sure you let it properly cool. I actually, after an hour, I turned off my oven and I let it sit in the oven as it cooled a little bit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I took it out and let it cool a little longer until it is cold to the touch. You need this to be cold to the touch for that. Now I'm going to put my little snowflake onto my jar. So you're going to want to make sure in your jar that you're going to be putting your snowflake on the side that doesn't have any writing on it, because these have in little letters has the brand name of the jar on them. So just make sure you pick the smooth side of your jar. And then I'm going to slowly lift off the gold from my little vinyl snowflake, and then I got gotta get these little pieces off too. Now, like I said, if you got one of our kits, they're going to have a little toothpick in there that can help you do this. I'm just gonna use my nails because I don't have one of the toothpicks with me. Now I gotta decide, I'm gonna try and get this as center as possible. I have no tricks on how to do this. Right there. And I am going to fold this over to, just gonna lift up a little bit on these sides as it's folded over. Pick all three of these, get them there for a second. And then I'm going to attempt to make this center. I have no guarantees. Okay. And then this, and then just smooth that down. For a final touch, I've got some fairy lights here. If you got one of our kits, you should have these, and I'm just going to put these into my jar. And I'm going to leave it till about there, and then I'm going to take my lid and put it over top. There. And there you have it. You've got your beautiful glass jar. So this is a great one you can give as a gift, or you can have it for your own decoration. You can also do fun things like this one, because I didn't have a lid for it. I took some hot glue on the sides to make it look like icicles, and you can put some other stuff in it. And other tips that you can do is, if you're worried about this, you could always take a drill and put a hole in there so that you have a place to feed it through.
Just a few tips on what I learned in doing my sea glass luminary. for the Mod Podge, make sure that it is the food coloring in your Mod Podge is really well mixed. And if you're going to use the glitter, pour it in a little bit of time and make sure that is really well mixed as well. When you swirl it around to cover, make sure it covers all the way to the end. Pour the excess back in there and then turn it upside down. Now the tip I have is that while it was dripping, and it can take several hours, I would go back and wipe the edge of here, and I would wipe here off so that I was hopefully have as clean an edge here as I could so that the lid would screw on well, and when it's dry you can pop off some of it later. Also, the toothpick here, if you needed to pry up your little snowflake, you can do that if you can't do it with your fingers. On the lid, a couple suggestions. I have found that when you do the lid here, just do the back part. As you can see that the glue leaves a little spot. So maybe only have that in the back so that the front stays smooth. Also, when you put in your puff ball, pull it out and fluff it up really well so that it's sort of bigger for the lid. And then for the lid, make sure, as before, I think I mentioned that when you put something on the top like the flower before, make sure that you press down when you hot glue from both ends, because if you don't, this pot will pop out and you'll have to re-glue that as well. So that is the other tip I have. The only other tip I can suggest is when you put on your stickers, sort of figure out where you want them before you actually put them on. I gave you different sizes. You can do it however you want. Just sort of maybe plan it out before you put the sticker on, because they're kind of hard to pull off again. So those are the tips I have, and then you can watch Kate's video for step-by-step. And also attached to this video will be a couple of instructions. There'll be this one that we made up ourselves. Kate had this one and I modified it for our adult craft. And then here's one from the internet that I also printed off that is two-sided, so you'll have printed instructions as well. So I hope you have fun, and we hope to see you next month for our painted wine glass. Thank you. Bye.
All right.